Hello, ESL 0102 students. This is Professor Holly, and we're going to keep working with modals. We're working with modals of permission, necessity, and obligation. And this is still in Unit 7 in your textbook. All right, as we've learned before, we've got the true modals, and we've got the quasi-modals, those verb phrases that are modal-like auxiliaries. And if you've got the new version of the text, these are on pages 103 to 105. This is where they talk about them and give some additional examples and explanation. So we have 4 true modals that we can use for these. We can use may, and of course the negative may not, can, the negative cannot, must, notice there's no negative here, and then in the past I can use could and could not. And a lot of the times when we're talking about this, we're going to be using the quasi-modals. So we've got be allowed to, be permitted to, be required to, be supposed to, have to, need to. All of these things on the right have tense and agreement. So I am allowed to, you are allowed to. I was permitted to, you were permitted to, like that. Here are a few examples for you. All right, you may take a short break. That's giving permission. And if you're asking permission politely, you're going to say, may I? May I leave early? And the response would be, yes, you may. No, you may not. So again, permission, formal permission. You may take a short break. You may not take a short break. Sorry. All right. Informally, I can use can and cannot. So I'm sorry, you cannot take a short break right now. We're in the middle of some work that we have to do. Remember, if we write cannot, we either use can't, the contraction, or we usually write it as one word. Also, I can say you can take a short break. That's giving permission. To ask, you would say, can I leave early? Yes, you can. No, you can't. Again, that's informal. All right. And then if you want to talk about something that's a lot stronger than permission, you would use must. That's asking about or telling about obligation and requirement. So you must take a short break. It's required by labor law, for example. And if you want to be very formal when you're asking about your obligations or requirements, you can say must. Must I type the assignment? But again, a lot of times we would use something like, do I have to? Do I need to? Am I supposed to? Things we're going to see on a later slide. Now, again, keep in mind, if I'm using can, it can be informal permission, but it also might be ability. So it's going to depend on the context. So if I say, for example, last year you could not handwrite your work, that's more talking about past permission. It doesn't mean that you didn't have the ability. If I said you could not handwrite it, or that you did have the ability, you could handwrite it. I mean, it's more likely you had the right or the permission from your teacher to do that or not to do it. All right, so back to some of our quasi-modals. As I said, they have tense and agreement. Some of them are synonyms of each other, others have differences in meaning. So be allowed to and be permitted to, they are pretty much synonymous. They are either giving permission or denying permission. So you are allowed to apply for a driver's license at age 16. You are permitted to apply for a driver's license at age 16. All right, those are roughly the same. And again, if I make it negative, it just means you don't have permission. Once again, I can use this. First person, I am allowed to. You are allowed to. He is allowed to. We are, they are allowed to or permitted to. But I can also use it in the past tense. So where I grew up, I was allowed to practice driving when I was 14, or I was permitted. You were permitted, for example. And then I can also say, once someone turns 21, they will be allowed to, for example. All right. We also have be supposed to, once again, has tense and agreement. You are supposed to stay in the classroom. That kind of gives us a sense of expectation. We do use this sometimes very similarly to how we would use must, have to, and need to, but it means it's a sense of expectation. We expect that it happens. And if I say you are not supposed to stay in the classroom, that conveys a sense of inappropriateness. It's not okay. When I talk about inappropriateness, it could just be like saying you're not supposed to wear a swimsuit to a job interview unless you're applying for a lifeguard job. It's just not appropriate. It's not against the law. It's not against the rules, but people would look at it and think, huh, that's weird. All right, just a few more examples just to clarify some tricky areas. We've got may and can. So remember I said that may and can both be used to ask for or to grant permission. So may I open the window and can I open the window? All right, those are both making requests for permission. But notice that we would never say, may you open the window. We're not going to use the second person with may. But I can say, can you open the window? So again, this is a request. It's not asking for permission for me. I'm making a request of you. So may I open the window? I'm asking for permission. Can I open the window? Again, I'm asking for permission, but informally. Can you open the window? I'm making a request. And then we've got request and ability. So again, we know that you may leave early. That's permission. May I leave early? Request. But if I say you can leave early, well, that could be request, not request, but permission, or it could be ability, depending on the context. So, for example, most of the time, if I say something like, Ella can speak French, I'm talking about her ability. I'm not giving Ella informal permission. I'm just saying she's able to do it. All right, so there's a lot of things to keep up with when we're doing these particular modals and quasi-modals, because on the left side, these are the affirmatives, and they all mean roughly the same thing. You can use them pretty much interchangeably. As I said earlier, we've got be supposed to, and that one is more expectation than requirement, but it's still a very related concept. So you have to type the assignment. You need to take your medicine. You're required to have an ID. You're supposed to be there at 8. You must go to the lab. These are all ways of expressing a requirement, a necessity, an obligation. All right. However, once I get to the right, well, the negatives are not the opposite in meaning. Up till now, until we got to modals, whenever we'd hear a negative, we expected it to be the opposite in meaning. So if I say, I like pizza, I don't like sauerkraut, don't like is the opposite of like. But have to and don't have to are not opposites. Don't have to, don't need to, are not required to. Okay, the negatives of have to, need to, and be required to are for expressing options. So you don't have to type the assignment. You're allowed to handwrite it if you want to. Do what you want. You don't need to go to the bookstore. You can, or you can order things online. You're not required to have an ID to come into my classroom if I already know who you are and you're on my list. It's just optional in those cases. But as soon as I get down to supposed to and must, in the negative, the meanings again, these aren't options anymore. These are other things. So you are not supposed to be there at 8. That often will suggest inappropriateness. It could also express a lack of expectation, depending on the context. But you're not supposed to be there at 8. The building is locked. The guard won't want to let you in. And then you must not means it's a prohibition. It's against the rules. It's taboo. It's forbidden. You must not go to the lab. For example, maybe there was a hazardous spill in there and they're having to clean it up. All right, now that I've introduced these particular modals, I have a little homework for you. I want you to, in your textbook, review pages 103 to 105. That's the charts that are going to help you with this information. Do exercises 3.1 through 3.5. Check your answers in the answer key. If you've got the online workbook, just keep working in Unit 7. Again, you don't have to submit any of the textbook work that we do, but if you have questions, you can post them in the discussion board, and I'll be happy to help. All right. Once you've done the bookwork and you feel you're understanding the grammar, go ahead and try check 3. The password for check 3 is the word permission. As always, you can do the check as often as you need to before the end of the module, but it's a really good idea to do it before you move on to the next mini lecture. Once you've taken that quiz, you can download the self-study worksheet. Just like the other self-study worksheets we've done, just work on it using the grammar that we've learned in class. I've put sample answers that you can also download, and then you can review them. Again, if you've got any questions, you can bring them to one of our live review sessions, or you can post them to our discussion board. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you online.